talking about this for a while.
I know. Exciting. It's so exciting. And you are the first guest friend to be sitting in the actual new studio.
I know, it's gorgeous.
So fun.
It's gorgeous.
So fun.
Sparkling.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So we're on the Ambitious, Awakened, and Aligned podcast. Mm-hmm. And Kate is, I don't know how to describe, we're like sacred sisters. We support each other in business, in life, in all of the stuff. And Kate, you can tell us a little, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the official title is Certified Financial Planner, which is a broad term in today's world, right? Like there's a lot of connotations that comes up with that, and what does that even mean? But I would say if I had to pick another title, I would say I was more of a money mentor, money coach.
I love that.
And been in the business for a long time in lots of different kinds of roles, but really been able to function and to work in the way that I love in the last probably 5 or 6 years.
What's been different?
Autonomy, first of all, and being able to represent myself in my own brand and in my own practice. I've always previously worked within another brand or within another practice. I've always been more on the self-employed side, like entrepreneurial, but never fully launched. So with your support, we officially did that in 2019. So here we are.
It was such a fun phase, and I can't believe it's been that many years.
Yeah, I wouldn't have used the word fun.
I thought it was fun.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for it. And then even since then, since 2019, there's been a few things that have changed.
Just a few.
But the thing that has remained constant has been the type of client work that I do, the clients that I work with, the people that reach out. So that has been like it's a privilege to work with the people that I do.
It's amazing. And it's interesting because you and I have spoke before. We're gonna go off on a whole different tangent in a moment, but I really want to hold some space for you as a woman in business, as an owner of your own business, as a founder, as someone who has evolved and continued to expand in that industry, which was a very male-dominated industry when you started and hasn't really shifted that much far as how many women are there. And just for me to be on the sidelines and watch your success and watch your evolution over the last 5+ years, I'm just in awe of your ability to navigate it. And so I just want to kind of sit in there for a minute of, it's one of the biggest areas that we don't actually give it the energy or the actual like magnitude of what it means, really, the financial aspects of our life. Like we talk about money and we invest our money, some of us, and we manage our money, and like everything's run on a system of money, but we don't really learn it in school. We don't really learn how to, you shook your head when I said manage. So we don't really learn any of those things. Yeah. But way beyond that, we have no conversations about our emotional connection to it, the stories that have been created, where they came from, how we manage those things, the impact they have on our everyday, on our marriages, on our relationships with everybody, and careers. So on our careers. And so I love watching how you engage with the people you work with in, to me, a very unique way, because you put that front and center. You don't put the other stuff that so many financial planners do, and I respect that, but you do it different. And I really want to put some some energy towards that because I'm fascinated by it.
Mm.
And it's taught me a lot just watching you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I really appreciate, I mean, you articulate that so well. I was talking to someone this week who came into my office who was expressing her really grief around her relationship with money and feeling so much shame and but confusion and a lack of support and a lack of understanding, but more than anything, like really giving herself a hard time. And any way that I can come alongside and support that and say, well, you're not alone. Who did teach you about money? And then, like, we have to acknowledge that even how we interact with money has changed so much. Think about even in the last 10 years. I mean, we used to write checks for groceries. We used to use cash. I mean, now we don't even have to carry a plastic card. We can just tap with our phones. So we become more and more disassociated with an actual physical connection. And so, well, then you can be mindless. And it's I don't use that word like that means you're dumb. I just mean there isn't an actual connection. Whereas if you had $100 in your hand and you go to the grocery store and you know that you can only spend, or you've chosen to spend $100, you're not going to go over that. But there is none of that anymore, right? So, and it's like that about everything. So it becomes so easy to get confused. It becomes very easy to be disassociated, and I think it becomes harder to make a connection between what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, or what do I need or want. Like all of those things become so gray. And then we just layer on top of that most of us haven't had any basic financial acumen taught to us about, you know, $100 in is $100 out, and we have, well, we can just get overdraft, or we can just put it on the credit cards. Then it can get messy really quickly. But what I see more than anything is that there's anxiety and there's shame, there's confusion, and there's a lot of loneliness around all of those thoughts. There's not we keep ourselves isolated in that, right? And so any way that I can help, like, break open that, and like, let's have some conversations, or can we bring us together even to start having some of those conversations? We don't have to reveal everything, but even just getting used to talking about it.
Yeah, because even I find so many partnerships can't figure out how to talk about it effectively, or communicate without the shame or the guilt, because we're all carrying our old stories too. So if it's difficult for even husband and wife partnerships to talk about it, then how do you expand that to maybe speaking to your children, or how do you expand that to speaking to your family if you're trying to figure out succession planning or anything like that, right?
Exactly.
So or estates or all of it. So it's we've tried to, it's interesting your comment about, we've tried to make everything convenient. Like, we have this society of convenience with everything, with absolutely everything. And so it's, I'm going to totally flip the grid right here.
Do it.
And so teaching ourselves that we can do hard things, and then we'll come back to how that relates to money, but teaching ourselves that we can do hard things is, I think, vital to the human condition as we move forward. So, example, you shared with me when you got here that you did a juice this week, because we both were on holidays, and so we maybe had some cleansing to do.
Perhaps.
And so I was talking to you about, we did some fasting, you did some juicing, and which is fasting as well. And so Gerard and I were listening to a podcast on fasting on our way home, Fast Like a Girl. And she was sharing that one of the most important things she feels people learn from fasting has nothing to do with their physical bodies, their health. It's actually that they build confidence knowing they can do something hard in a world filled with conveniences. So we don't go through the types of things that past generations have gone through, we've built a world that we think is creating ease and simplicity, except then how we build confidence and how we learn to trust ourselves is through doing hard things.
Right, doing something that's maybe
out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't feel hard. Like I'm going to do a podcast coming up on just this whole word hard.
Because you and I have had a lot of talks about the hard.
Oh my gosh.
Keep encouraging me to stop thinking everything has to be so hard. Can we do it with some ease? Can we do it with some flow? So even putting that energy behind it.
For sure. Yeah.
But
we can...
hard meaning not your comfort, easy, regular stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone else may look at it and say, "Oh, that's so hard," and perhaps it is. Like, not discounting that, but yeah, doing something different.
Yeah. So Gerard has regularly fasted, and often people will say to him, "I can't do that. It's too hard."
Yeah.
Or every year I do a cleanse of not drinking for at least 30 days. And people will say the same. I can't do that. It's too
their
hard.
Choice. That's the reality, right?
Yeah, and that is their reality.
Yeah.
And it's also that anything outside of our comfort zone is something that we're gonna have all these emotions come up. We're gonna have all these things that we have to dance with internally. And so that's where I wanted to go. Was we were talking about the fear of just doing this. Just the fear of doing a podcast and sharing stories and talking openly and some of the conversations we have behind the scenes, and we're always like, we should be doing a podcast on this. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Except then once you turn the camera on and you put the microphone up, it changes. So I'm really curious for you to share with us, like, unwrap that for us, Kate. Okay. Let's hear it all.
Okay, so like this is not a money thing at all.
Not anymore.
This is just Kate, in all my own messiness. So, like you said, last week I was on holidays, and so we've talked about doing this podcast, like you said, for ages, and we had set this date. Actually, we were supposed to do it last month, and then circumstances changed. So then we set this date. And so it's been like hanging on my calendar, like, it's just been hanging there. What am I going to talk about? Am I going to sound like an idiot? Like, I don't know if I can do this. I want to do this. No, I don't want to do this. Anyway, so last week, when I was in the woods, we went camping, and it was amazing to have some real decompressed time. Put the phones away and just gave ourselves permission to really rest and just enjoy our space and each other. My husband and I had some time together, which hadn't had for a long time. So I said, I'm going to go for a hike, and I'm going to work this out, because that's how I do it. It's got to be a little bit hard.
We're going to do another future podcast on hard.
But it wasn't, it was a road, along a road. So I did actually think about that. I'm like, it's not on slippery high rocks. I'm not dangerous. It's just on a path. Okay. So there was some ease to it, to my credit. But I was still gone for an hour and a half. So, I started the whole thing with, all right, I'm going to work this out. Accomplishment. I've got to have an accomplishment here. But I really felt like I needed some time to really kind of wrestle through it. And I've been on this journey, particularly over the last year, of really kind of like really I don't want to use the word working, acknowledging my habit towards making things hard, and also recognizing how my work ethic and my drive has really supported me. But what it has also put me is in a place where I'm always in this, or I'm often in this overdrive state. So I'm like running on this really high energy, and it's really hard for me to bring it down. And I wanted to, and that's where we've joked about running away, right? Like, we're just gonna like run away one day, and then everything will be better. So you have sort of these fantasies, but I'm like, what if I can learn how to do that in my everyday, right? So have had these beautiful people that have come into my life that are like teaching me that, and you've supported me in that, and you know, the business has made some changes, but you know, relatively the same as far as the client work for me and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like anything radical has changed in that. It's just me being able to regulate my own nervous system. So when I went on this walk, I had this big talk with myself about, I'm actually tearing up because I'm getting kind of like I feel a little bit like hyper, like about it. I went on this walk and I was like, this podcast thing is taking me into that uncomfortable space, not the hard space, because I can do hard things. It's taking me into this stress space. And I'm like, I don't want that anymore, but I don't know how to get there without going into that. So, you know, through the time that I was walking along, I was like, I think I just need to back out. I think that's actually the loving thing that I can do for myself. And not from the standpoint of I'm going to back out and I'm never going to try again. It's just, I think that I need to just give myself that gift and give myself some space and allow myself to just admit that I'm just not ready. And I got to the end of my walk and I was like, yeah, I think that's it. Like Laurie loves me. She'll understand. She'll probably, you know, she'll have some words, but you know, she loves me, right? Like we'll work through this.
And I want everyone to know listening right now, I did not know this until this moment, which I think is also amazing because we were about to kind of sit down and plan. And then Kate said, no, let's just riff. And so here we are in that whole sacred sisterhood thing that we've dreamed about doing, almost like we don't know the listeners are listening, that we're just being ourselves and being real. And I love that that's what I'm seeing you do right now. So what next? What happened?
So I just felt so good. I was like, I am supporting myself. Like, look at this. Look at what I'm doing, right? Like, not doing something compulsively. I'm giving myself permission. And so I get back to the campsite and Matt's always like, oh, tell me, like, what's on your mind? What did you figure out? Like, he knows my brain's running. And I was like, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. And a few hours later, we're, you know, sitting by the campfire and I just let it all out. And he's like, yeah, I hear you. Like, if it's really that stressful for you, like, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea. Like, right? Like, I support you in that. And you know, which is beautiful. And I was like, oh, good. This is great. Okay.
So in that moment, did you feel great relief?
I felt such relief. And even like looking ahead to the festival, right? It's like, I would love to just show up. Like, I just want to support you. I want to support the women that, you know, have had this passion to make this happen. And I'm like, I'm just gonna love on everyone and just be, right? I'm like, yeah, I got it. I got it. I totally got it. And I went to bed. I was like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I worked all of that out. Is it okay if I swear?
Oh, yes.
So I've learned more recently that often we get woken up in the middle of the night because that's when we're processing all of our stuff, right? I kid you not. This is how I woke. Oh my goodness, I'm not even sure I can get this. So I don't know what time it was because we're in a campsite and I don't have my phone, but it was pitch black. It's pitch black. I fell into a deep sleep, like a great sleep, and I don't often stay asleep, right? Like, so I was like, I am on the right track. I woke up in the middle of the night, literally wide awake, and I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking?
That probably would have been the first thing I said to you when you shared it.
And I was like, you have an opportunity to express yourself with someone that knows you and loves you in a community that she's building that will bring the same kind of energy. you want to learn how to do this. You want to be able to step into something that's new. All of this is so new for me, right? And then, and the same with the festival. I'm like, we're literally praying for women who are in total alignment with what it is that we're trying to bring. So this is the safest space I could ever be in. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to get over it and get on with it. So here I am.
Here you are, fully showing up as you.
And it wasn't until this morning when I was talking with Jamie, who's one of the beautiful souls that's going to be at the festival, because I went to her for some support for some somatic work, and I was like, I got the podcast today, and so we went back and forth on it, and I had said to her, after being with her for a little while, I think I have to riff on how I got here. So here we are.
And this couldn't be a more supportive and truthful conversation for anyone that needs to hear this right now and at any point, because I think as we go through layers of expansion, that fear comes up, and it's almost like that choice moment where you can either stay where you are, which can be a good decision,
Be fine,
or take that next level of expansion and evolution. And that feels really uncomfortable in that moment. And I heard something recently where someone said, I'm the person that likes to put the quotes up about the expansion, but then behind the scenes I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And so this kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
And we're all the same that way. In those moments of a deep calling forward, that works the nervous system like nothing else.
Right. Yeah.
So this back and forth, and it feels icky and it feels exciting, and this is one of those coexisting moments I always talk about where we're going to feel all the feels, and that's confusing.
Yeah, and I think it's also like that. It's confusing also to know what to do with it. Of course, right? Like sometimes the answer is no.
Is pause.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is pause.
Yeah. So it's even that.
Yes.
So it's just funny that I would get like this succinct one sentence for like such clarity moment, and I didn't finish, like, and so then I get up the next morning and I say to Matt, so and he's like, I support you
either way.
Yes.
Which also, okay, so full disclosure, Kate and I are both Geminis. And so we can tend to have our minds running constantly.
We might, yes.
We might.
Yeah.
And we have amazing new ideas all the time. And so to have, I focus on amazing. Of course, we think they're amazing.
They're all amazing.
And so to have those people around you, like Matt, who so wholeheartedly is always, yes, Kate, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I see that side of it too. That really allows you the space to truly hear your own voice. Yeah. Versus having, the opposite of someone saying to you, and I would have been the same with you. I joke that I would have been like, what the fuck? And that might have come after. But I would have absolutely held space and capacity for, you navigating through that. And I think we're all launching the festival is that, launching this podcast again was that same feeling. And the week that the podcast was supposed to launch, nothing was ready. So I wanted part of our personality traits and where we align is that when it's fully formed, we'll go. We like things to be perfect. We're both sort of working on that perfectionism thing at the same time. I like to say we're recovering perfectionists, but others might question that.
Whether or not we're actually recovered.
Whether we're recovered. And so it wasn't ready. The wall wasn't here and the chairs weren't here. And so I just said, forget it. When everything's together, I'll launch. And I had to work through that fear piece as well of, well, wait a second, is that Is that the fear? Is that, should I wait?
Right.
You know, it's navigating all those questions. And then it was actually my son that I had a conversation with, and he said, Mom, go. Let me help you set the camera up. And then you'll be able to talk later about how you evolved it and you expanded and it became what it became. And so we're all on that journey. Even when you got here today, we talked about the journey versus the destination. It's kind of the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it made me think about like what you had talked about in your previous podcast as well, as the loneliness that we can feel, and the importance of our community. And a community doesn't mean that it has to be like 50 people. Like, well, some of us might like 50 people. Some of us that are a little more introverted are happy with 3 or 4. But it's also like having, you have maybe your one person that you would call about that kind of thing, right? Or I knew that Jamie was the person that was going to support me to get here today, right? Like we worked through that. We actually worked through the nervous system stuff so that I could come here today. And if I may roll this back to financial stuff for a sec.
For sure.
Okay, because I recognize when you're in a place where you're doing your own work from that perspective, or we've all had our story and our journey that we bring with us. My story and journey with money and working through my own anxieties or fears or perfectionism, all overachieving, all that kind of stuff. I try and see that in my clients. I don't mean project, but I'm saying like see them with that kind of empathy, that they each have their own story. And if someone has made it to the door, like if someone is contacting me out of the blue and they've come through the door, they've done a lot of work to get there. So it's so I try and hold a safe space for that too, right? And there, I think we all, acknowledged or unacknowledged, we all have a lot of emotions attached to our money. So there's the disassociation of the physicality of it, but there's all of these emotions that are attached to it that we don't understand, or we might be, we're not mindful, or we're bewildered around. And so, you know, that's the kind of, to me, that's kind of the fun stuff to unwrap. Not that everyone has to come and talk to me about their feelings, but I try and remember people's feelings when we're talking. Like, what is motivating this person? Like, what is it that they're trying to solve? Right? Is it a fear? Is it a lack? Is there just an uncertainty? So that's if I can unsuccinctly describe what really is the fun part for me about my business world, and the part of the autonomy that I have that gives me that's the kind of conversations and work that I like to do with people. And then there's just the practical side of things, but I liked, if possible, if the person's open to it, to understand them first before we get to the practical side, because I think then the practical application becomes so clear to them and to me about what it is that we need to do, or how we may do it. Yeah.
I think that my favorite statement of all time, and people will hear me say it over and over again, and I know you've heard me say it, Kate, business is simple, people are complicated.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that's any different when it comes to the financial part of things. Is really the finances are simple.
Yeah.
You know, that part of the technical side of your business, you're highly trained at, highly skilled at, know what you need to do to support people, stay educated and knowledgeable on that part of your business. So that's obviously a really important part, as you said. But it's the people, when you wrap in everything someone's been through unconsciously and consciously, and you being able to hold space for even just people feeling, and that even just people getting that feeling that you actually care about their story and what their emotions towards money are. And obviously the people that are going to choose to do business with you are seeking that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that alignment is really important. If someone just wants the technical and wants to really, you know, play with that part of it, you can still do great work with them. just might not be great alignment, because that other part of it, the human part of it, is what makes you so powerful in working with someone. And so I think that whole like business is simple, people are complicated, same thing.
Yeah.
We're really complex.
And we change all the time.
We change constantly. Look at you and I leave a little snakeskin behind us every single day. You know, we then peel that layer off.
And so why wouldn't it be the same with how we make our financial decisions?
Absolutely.
Or what our goals and dreams are? Or, you know, like it's not a one and done. So it is a path. So if you can have someone track that with you, if that's what you want, then I mean, all the more, right?
What's something practical? I'm laughing even as I say that
you said
word.
Practical.
As I say the word practical. But what is something that, like an inspired action that someone could take towards even opening up that channel for themselves?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for us to say it, but we haven't been conditioned that way.
Yeah.
Really. So I'll give a little backstory. Kate ran just a beautiful retreat. Was it spring or when was this?
The first one?
Yeah.
It was last October.
Oh my gosh, last fall.
Yeah.
And we were in Quebec, and it was just so beautiful. And she brought together a beautiful group of women and just held space for an unfolding, I would say, of all sorts of different things from a business and personal perspective. And we learned so much of like you creating that space with the one thing I think that really came from it is there was a bit of a loose agenda, which isn't Kate's normal personality, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it was very purposefully loose to see what would come from this and what lessons could be learned, because you have such a heart for really helping people and helping bring out their best selves. And so by design, it was fairly loose in its agenda. And so one day we were sitting there and Kate asked a couple of really strong questions around money, like what was our first memory of money? Where did our money stories come from? And I think we talked for, it felt like 2 hours, this group of women, about all these different emotions around money. I had never in my life sat and had that type of financial / money conversation with people that really I wasn't that close to per se. Well, to be fair, I'd never sat and had that type of conversation with my own family growing up, even, right? So that really set in motion lots of thoughts and energies and desires for how me and my family, and how I can teach my own children to have better conversations about money and to be more open and aware. So what can we give people as some ways of doing that for themselves? Yeah. So powerful. That moment was so powerful,
That's
Kate.
amazing. Yeah, and I think we've even talked about that back and forth because, I love hearing the impact, right? Because we sometimes we don't know what the impact of something is, right? Like it's a simple question.
It seemed simple at the time,
right? Yeah, and so so that's fun, right? We kind of went back and forth on this what's application or what's your expression that you use forget it, I can't remember. It's your takeaway. What are you calling that?
Inspired action.
Thank you.
Okay, cut Danielle. Cut that little clip, but here we go.
Part. Yeah, your inspired action. Originally, we had talked about something practical, and I actually was going to say I don't think it's practical because I think that's our normal. Well, what's my action then? What do I need to do? And we just get into our logical brain. So.
Oh, I'm excited because I don't really like being there. That's why I giggled the first time I said that.
Yeah. So I'm like, that doesn't align.
Sorry, I like being an inspired action. Let me clarify. It's the whole practical side of things that I giggled as I said the word.
Well, I think that like that's not actually the purpose of what we're
I
trying to
love that.
bring right now, right? Like we can have the financial conversations. That is for sure, like that needs to happen as well. But what we want to provide from an inspired perspective would be, can you create a pause or a mindfulness around your spending? So this would come more from the teaching of Barry Tesler, and even the money questions, they were inspired from her. But it would be it's just to bring us back into our bodies, and maybe that's language that some of your listeners are not used to. But it's just this idea that we can go into automatic on so many things, and because it's so easy to click now, right? Like I get my groceries online, I stuff comes from Amazon, and I'm guilty of this. Like I can do the same thing where I'm just like, I don't even know how much money I just spent. Like, so is it possible between now and the festival to catch yourself, to say, is this actually a purchase that I want to make? Is this something that I feel good about? Is this something that I'm not sure about? Is this something that I can pause on? Anything to just pause and think about it before you do it would be an inspired action. And I think to your expressions, if it is, then it's a hell yes, right? Like go for it. Like this is not about putting any shame or putting or dictating how you're supposed to feel about it. It's just, are you actually thinking about what you're doing, thinking and feeling?
Add the mindfulness. Yeah. And I think, we speak about that with so many different topics. That alone as a practice of just really pausing, being mindful and intentional, choosing hell yes, and really checking in with yourself. And certainly a conversation we're going to keep having is how you feel that in your body.
Yeah.
And some of the things we'll be teaching through amazing facilitators at the festival coming up in October is feeling that. And even you and I have talked about how you might incorporate that in your business in the future, of supporting people to be able to know that, to have that intuition. And it's a practice that you and I have been building into our own lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
In the
Doing
last couple of years.
Yes, for sure.
And really leaning in and exploring. Like it's an experiment. We keep saying it's an experiment with being able to do that. So that is an absolutely awesome inspired thought, inspired intention to leave people with. I want to go back to you talking about Jamie and seeing her this morning, and just a little bit about this wellness team you and I talk about. So I was thinking about the upcoming festival. So part of what came from the retreat that we did in Quebec was we were all talking about our businesses and our dreams and our goals at the same time as we were having some meaningful conversations around money and life and love and everything. Yeah. It was all on the table.
And fun.
Yeah. We might have popped some corks.
We might have. Yeah.
We might have. And
jumped on some trampolines.
And jumped on trampolines and went out in paddle boats, and even just that beauty of seeing how using our bodies in alignment with our brains, because we're so used to the brain heavy stuff on a regular, was really a fun experiment too. And so the festival was formed there really because it had been a dream of mine for a long time. And then the amazing women, Kate and everyone else that was there, started just doing this end, which I love. Like, and what about this? And what about that? And we're launching, we're doing this thing. And all of the women that were there are actually going to be facilitators and helping bring powerful conversations like the money. Kate's going to be doing some really cool stuff around money at the festival, I think, right?
I think so.
Okay.
We're still going to keep working on that.
I'm just wondering if the dream was. And so part of that is you and I have been talking for the last definitely few years about how vital it is to build a wellness team, to have a team of people in your life that support you, that help you grow, that straighten your crown. So I just want you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's it came with, like, for me, as far as the journey, is that what you mean? Is that the question? Okay. I think the journey came from after well, you get to a stage, I think most of us, or some of us do, where, at least for me, I had finished the bulk of kind of my child raising years, right? Like, I did get to a stage where I was like, okay, now what? And generally feeling burnt out, and pretty exhausted. I've been, like, chronically exhausted for most of my adult life. Never felt like there was any like, there was no choice in that. That's just simply the way it needed to be. And had started to have some health challenges, and recognizing that they were stress related. And so, but not really having any, like, well, then what do you do, right? Oh, you just need to slow down. I'm like, well, I'm not a slow down person. Like, I don't even know what that, like, I literally did not know what that meant. Like, it does that, I think that's where the running away joke came in, right? Like, that's the only thing you can do, right? You can only run away. So, you know, that's not really what I want to do, but it's, slowly, when you start to search, like, these people start to come into your life. And so I've started to learn a different way of being. And so it's when you're on the corporate or career, like, hard, and no, I don't want to use that expression. Hard's not the right word, but you're in a more traditional business, corporate-y kind of pathway. There, like, it's almost like there's a completely different trajectory or different line on the train, right? That's this whole wellness side, and I was like, I didn't even know anything about it, right? Like,
yeah, and a little bit one or the other.
Yes, exactly.
So and you mentioned this earlier in our conversation. Well, I'm either going to stay on this achievement path, and I'm going to be highly successful. And again, we both come from male-dominated corporate industries. And so we've been unwrapping as well, which will be another whole podcast, about the difference between masculine environments and feminine environments. And we both actually have lots of masculinity in us. We have that high drive and achievement. It's part of us. Like, we think work is fun.
I love it.
And we love being like, go, go, go. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that, except that there was this other possibility of that's what felt like slowing down.
Or softness.
And there was this probably misperception inside of us, which we're just still unraveling, that if I go over there, am I going to lose my edge over here?
Yeah. Or you literally do need to choose.
Do I have to choose?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, for a long time, how I managed my stress was with long distance running.
Right.
And so that was a good fit. But then I got burned out from that. And this is not against long distance running at all. It's just how it actually drove me, and it still kept me in a stressful state. So I think it's more when I just got to, like, everything's stressing me out. Like, is it possible not to not be stressed? And I was like, I don't know. I literally don't know. And so I started working with a naturopath. I started working with a chiropractor. That started my journey first. And he kind of expanded me more to this wellness, this idea of, like, what you eat has an impact. Like, I understood, like, healthy food, not healthy food, but, like, literally, where's your food coming from? And is it nourishing you? And, like, how's your body responding to that? And then started working with a naturopath or an herbalist who then, you know, tinctures, and how do I support my system? Then I started working with Christina, because I was like, is it possible for me to, like, kind of find some healing just in myself? Or is it everything that I'm putting in my body? And she taught me that. She taught me that, like, we really can regulate and find healing. So Christina became part of the journey, and then I think from her I met Jamie, and then Jamie like does the physicality of it, right? Like it's the somatic work, and it's like bringing the nervous system down. And then you're in that path as like, and we're like, let's do this together. Let's let's figure this out together. So, and then there's been other people that have kind of come in for a while, or like have complemented some of the other. But I name those also because they're, you know, who we're working with now as well. But it's this, for me, it's been this journey of I need to find my people. And so it was this acceptance of that. And honestly, I had to like almost grieve that, because I'm like, really? Like, it's like this seems hard. This feels hard. And so it did seem a little bit kind of impossible, right? Like this, how long is this going to take? Like, we're raised with if you take a pill, you're going to feel better, right? We're like, oh man, this is going to like take years. Yeah.
It's the onion. We peel back one layer, like, and there's another one.
There's another part of me. Yeah. So at this stage, I don't know how many years it's been now. It's been a number of years. Like, I think, or talk to me next week, I might change my mind. But like, it's a journey. It's a healing journey.
It's a journey. And
these people come into your life when you're looking for them. Like, I think when you're open to it, when you're searching for them, they're there. And so the fun part is that, like, when you find people that are equally passionate about what they do, then you can start having kind of these bigger picture conversations. And that's kind of where we've ended up intersecting, right? Like when it comes to the business, and are passionate about who we want to reach, and what that looks like, and how can we support each other. So.
Which is so beautiful. And I was thinking, for you and I do think part of that is a timing thing of how the world has shifted and evolved and become more open to wellness and different conversations. But for you and I, we had to hit a health crisis before we started investigating and experimenting and opening and seeking. And so that's been, you know, there's been alignment there. I think what we would both love to inspire is that you don't have to get to a crisis.
Yeah, please don't, actually.
Because you don't. It actually is just, if only, you know, and we can always say it in the rearview mirror.
Of course we can.
If only we had learned these things, you know, even in our 20s or 30s.
But there was no one there to teach us that.
No, and now, but we can teach that. And I think we're really excited to be able to share with emerging leaders and young women that there is another way, that it doesn't have to be quite the journey we took. There doesn't have to be a crisis. You can build your life that way, which is so cool. And we're teaching our daughters that, and we're teaching our sons that, and we're teaching the next generation that are in our lives as well. So we've kind of brought all this together, you know, because Kate and I talk about this, as you can tell from our conversations, we're unwrapping this whole hard work thing. So we're going to keep having that dialogue. And as we do that, had this passion to create an opportunity where you can be ambitious and have high goals and have that personality for drive and live in that and be in that and embrace that, and have wellness and inner peace and joy and fulfillment. And so we're looking for ways to merge those things. And the festival is just one of those things, but also two women sitting here and having vulnerable conversations about what's been real for us is another way of doing that. So we hope this is a gift for people today. I know you're a gift for me, and us constantly having these conversations
right back at you, sister.
Is so beautiful. So before we end, I have one last question.
Okay.
So when we look at ambitious, awakened, and aligned,
yes,
what does that mean to you sitting here today as who you are?
That's a great question. The first thing that pops into my head, happy. And happy, I don't mean like artificial, I mean like joy and fun. Yeah, I think that like when I'm in all of that, it is actually like so much fun.
Juicy.
So much fun. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being here. You're
Thank
such
you.
a blessing.
Thank you for thank you for inviting me.
Wait,
What?
before we end, will
Yeah.
you tell your deer story?
Oh,
Because we're this connection to nature.
yes.
We continue, Kate and I, to really lean into that, embrace it, know that it's a part of, for us, what lifts our souls and lets us put our feet on the ground and connect all the things that really help us expand. And so the whole story that Kate shared about deciding not to do the podcast and then deciding to do the podcast, she had a friend on that journey.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. So so Matt drops me. We're in Killbear. So anyone who knows that park, like I posted a picture last week, and I got personal messages from all kinds of people who are like, "I love that place," and family memories, and yeah. So it is a pretty special place for a lot of people. So I get dropped off at the top of the park, or just outside the gates, and there's this park, like I said, this parkway walkway all along. And I get about like 200 meters in, and I look to the left, and there's a doe right in front of me, and she's like 5 feet away from me. And usually they like get skittish and run off, right? And she just stood there and stared at me, and sort of picked some grass and like looked back up at me, and I just stood there and waited, and I put my hand on my heart, and I was like, oh, like, hello, beautiful, like, wow, like we're having a little moment here. And she like stayed there for about 5 minutes. We just stood there kind of just coexisting and being together, and then she like wandered off and turned back and looked at me again and let me I took her picture, and then she went off, and I was like, okay. And that's when I was like, well, this is going to be a powerful walk, right? Like, I'm like, oh, wow.
Get ready.
Like, that was so special, right? And so an hour and a half later, I'm down at the other end of the trail, and just as I finish, I turn to my right, and there she is. And she didn't come she was maybe 15, 20 feet away, but she stood stock still. So I don't know how long she even been standing there, but it wasn't until I noticed her, and then I stood and looked at her, and she was too far away for me to even get her picture, but I just felt her just saying, yeah, thanks for the walk, and I'm with you, and off she went.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Nature and connection to animals is so powerful.
Well, and I didn't share with you, but there's another extra to this. So the next day I go out, and I decided to go the other way. So I started at the beach end, and I'm going to walk to the other side. And I got about a kilometer in, and then there was a doe and a fawn.
Wow.
And they came from one side of the pathway to the other. There's like, obviously they're very tame in the park,
For sure.
right? But I was just like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like late in the day or early in the day. It's not a time when you would normally see them, right? So I just felt like such a beautiful gift.
You were supported. They were there to remind you of something, allow you to really center yourself.
Well, that's just it. They were just being, right?
They were being.
So they were just being, and they just reminded me that like, just enjoy your walk.
Just enjoy.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
It was special.
Very special. Thank you for sharing.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Laurie.
Okay. Mwah.
Mwah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And we will look forward to sharing some new exciting stories with you on our next episode.